What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Crypto Catch Up with me, Benny. Now, we're going to be doing just a quick little review today of two projects. One that's been around for at least a month or so, and another one that's kind of just popped onto the scene. It's nothing specifically why I've chosen these. It's just one of the two that are hanging around at the moment, and I haven't done a little bit of a review for a while, so we're going to go over them quickly as possible. So the first one, you can see the name on your screen there, and instead of Uranus is how you would say it possibly in Australia, we're going to go with Uranus. Now, Uranus, the primordial god of the sky, is a symbol of hope and future in Greek mythology, delivering light and power to every corner in the world. And I guess what they're trying to say here in relation to their platform is, just like a lot of other platforms that we've covered in the past, more specifically Hypernet, or one that we have done on the channel ourselves, is reusing or utilizing that global computing power that is sitting there idle, from your desktop PC to server farms to your mobile phone, and creating obviously some form of network out of that on a blockchain based solution. A lot of the things that I'm really looking at the moment is, are any of these projects delivering any type of user value? Recently, I've called out projects in Australia for their use of tokens, which not only did they not need their own native token, the way they're actually structuring their platform on a public blockchain when it is a B2B product is absolutely ludicrous. It makes zero sense. It is purely a fundraising model. And if they were just clear about that and their intentions from the start, and try to utilize something like a security token offering, you'd be getting a lot more bang for buck and making it a lot easier for the people that are actually trying to use a platform at the end of the day, rather than just going with an ICO for an ICO's sake. So this platform here, like I said, it's trying to empower that redundant computing power around the world. So this is exactly the same, just slightly different to that of Golem, Sonum, Hypernet, Anchor. There's abundance of not only blockchain platforms doing this, but also that of private stuff, Amazon's, AWS, Google, and a raft of other, Oracle and otherwise, that are providing these exact services. So that's why we want to really talk about use case here, because if I have to pay more than what it is to cost, to get an Amazon server to do the same thing, why would I? Everyone harps on about this whole decentralized nature, but the reality is that a lot of these applications do not need to remove trusted intermediaries, especially when it comes to just you or me going on and needing a computation done, which is what essentially these platforms are offering. The ability to pay for some form of computational power and for that to be run, rather than transacting between each other and needing to remove that intermediary. So if we move on, it's saying it's a sharing platform that aims to be the Airbnb and Uber for computing resources. So like Airbnb and Uber don't own any, cars and don't own any properties, but obviously collectively the way that they empower these, cars that are sitting at home or not doing much. Same with Airbnb when you're on holidays. It's exactly the same premise here. So in terms of the actual technical elements to it, one of the biggest things that I was looking at is they've got this Uranus Container here, and what they try and do is essentially containerize the software so it can be used, across a multitude of platforms in a contained way. So if you want to run a piece of code, you can do that. It will execute within a logical section of a computer, and let's say you have a server with a lot of power available to it that you can farm out for people to utilize. It containerizes each aspect of somebody's request. So my request to do this mathematical equation, your request to do this, it could be run on the same server but in a virtualized sense that is locked away from each other as to not cause any, drama or any troubles with the way that your code could be executing, whether it be malicious or not. So it's certainly not new. So what I put up here is, products called Docker and Kubernetes. It's used in nearly all decent enterprise grade DevOps. So that's development and operations combined. DevOps, kind of agile industries or enterprises that are wanting to be able to spool up servers to use, whether it be just to test something quickly, whether it be to maintain a logical instance in a, like we said, a containerized fashion, so it doesn't hurt anything else, like a sandbox. You use open source software like this. So Kubernetes and Docker is one of the biggest ones in the world. So that is essentially what Uranus is doing with its platform, with that underlying blockchain-based ecosystem, which uses their token. I think it's a URAC token, for them to be able to obviously incentivize, people to have their computing space, to incentivize people to obviously not be bad actors within the system. A lot of this resource control management and all of that sort of stuff is actually, very common in these kind of networks. You need a way to be able to manage the load balancing, to manage where computing power is going to be used from, and a range of tools and suites of software like that to obviously make it work. Really, everything that's being achieved here is achieved in the private world very successfully, but obviously here they're saying their Euroblock supports, a public blockchain. It's cross-chain, so it's interoperable, forking, optimized consensus algorithms, which means that, hopefully you will get a higher transactions per second, off-chain services, etc., etc., etc. So there's nothing new here in what we're seeing, but this project is getting quite a lot of hype from the marketplace as a whole. And as you can see here, large number of strategic investors. Now, the team with James Young at the helm is actually quite strong. He has quite a background in not only virtualization and cloud computing, but they also have a number of other individuals who have the necessary knowledge to be able to make something like this a possibility. So from, I guess, an individual perspective in terms of what the project is really worthy of, they look solid. Is it novel? By no means, no, it's not. It has strong hype around it, because there is a lot of projects like Sonam and Golem that are really fighting for something in this space. And as we move to an Internet of Things society where it's going to have a lot of data, you might need to actually do computations on that data with the algorithms. It's said that IoT devices, currently there's around 8 billion. It's expected in the coming years to go anywhere between 500 billion to 1 trillion. So there's going to be a need for these general purpose computing platforms if the model is right. As Moore's law kind of continued to go on, and Moore's law is dead now, guys. We've got to the point where the diameter on the chip between each portion of the processor, let's say at a high level, to not get down in too deep into the technicals, is so close together that there's actually no value in the fact that it used to be doubling every 18 months in processing power or computational power on the chip by slowly moving in the die size. Now that simply doesn't occur anymore. So with this here, it's really about finding value in that project, because the computation and what you're getting from hardware nowadays is going to need to be supported heavily by our software platforms that allow us to, I guess, gain value from the data that we're getting from all these different projects that are out there. So that is this project. They've got a fairly strong team here, quite a few people on board, quite a few investors. Other than that, there's nothing that stands out to me and goes, yeah, great, this is, as big as Ben-Hur. To me, these are all very similar it will come down to whatever can offer the best product in the years to come. And that's something to watch out for in terms of return on investment if you were to invest. And this is not obviously financial or legal advice. This is purely my personal opinion. I don't see it as something that you're going to make huge bang for buck on down the track. Obviously, you would be utilizing this token because it should be a utility token and not a security to utilize the network. So if you feel like you're going to need to utilize a network like this, go ahead, take a look at it. Uranus ICO. Nice and simple. Catch you later, guys.